Okay, so today we are going to have a monster battle between Saber and Will Blake from the Werewolf of Fever Swamp. So, Saber appears in Welcome Camp Nightmare, and Will Blake appears in the Werewolf of Fever Swamp. So, if you haven't read those two books, then I might say a couple of spoilers, especially for Welcome Camp Nightmare. Some huge spoilers for that one. Not as much for the Werewolf of Fever Swamp, since, it's mainly dealing with a werewolf. And so, I don't really need to go into that many spoilers for the book, since that one's not, a completely original monster. It is sort of an original monster, but, it's not, you can basically just talk about the stats of the character without getting into the spoilers for the book. But I would advise you to turn back if you haven't read Welcome Camp Nightmare. Not really that much for the Werewolf of Fever Swamp. I mean, a little bit, but again, not that much. But anyway, guys, let's get into this monster battle. But before I get into the actual who I think would win in the fight, I want to go over the stats of each character just to get a clear overview and get a more clearer, definitive answer of who would win. So first, let's start out with Saber. So Saber has only appeared in Welcome to Camp Nightmare, and he actually almost appeared in Goosebumps the film, by the way, but I'm going to be basing this Saber off of the book, the one that we get in the book of Welcome to Camp Nightmare. I know in the end it is sort of revealed that Saber is fake, but I'm going to have to just go with the stats from this character, because it is kind of proven that Saber is real due to Goosebumps Horror Town, and also how he did almost appear in the film. Like, if he was just a robot or something like that, how could he have unscripted movements and all that? So, really, I'm mainly going to be going off of the book's stats, but Saber is real, so most likely they base Saber off of the real Saber, which means he possibly and most likely would have the same stats. So, anyway, guys, after 2 minutes of not really getting into anything, let's get into the stats of Saber. So, first off, Saber is very, very powerful. In Camp Night Moon, the area that he lives in, he's been known to kill children. And so, that means really without a struggle. It's said or implied by the book they ripped a child to pieces very easily. So, this really just proves how powerful Saber actually is. And he seems to be very fast. I don't think it ever says that, but I mean, since he's a wolf-like creature, he's not a werewolf by any means, since he stays in his form a long time, but he most likely can run really fast, just judging from what he looks like, from what we get to look at him, and also can, I think, be very durable, because in the book, the camp has weapons to defend themselves from evil creatures like this, like with rocket launchers. Like in the very beginning of the book, I think, one of the camp counselors, I think his name's Uncle Al, used a rocket launcher. And so, yeah, Saber is very incredibly powerful. He can easily rip children to shreds. And so, honestly, I would say, as on a physical level, Saber is immensely powerful, as I probably said like 5 times, but Saber's powerful. Also, I think he's very intelligent due to Goosebumps Horror Town, in which, he's basically talking to other people, he's disguising himself as a human, and just all this stuff. So Saber not only is very, very powerful and all that stuff, he's also very intelligent, more intelligent than your average wolf-like monster that's in the Goosebumps universe. So Saber, there's really not that much to say about Saber, since we really don't get that much insight on his character and stuff like that. But Saber can rip children to shreds very easily, and is very intelligent, proving that he's almost like the perfect monster, I would say. And also, I would say also that he's the top predator in that area, since that's the monster that the book really keeps talking about, how, Saber's everywhere. And also, if you notice in the book where they were using the rocket launcher, there's actually a group, I don't think it was of Sabers, but it was these wolf-like creatures called prairie wolves. And so, you can see that they're all, bunched up together. And Saber himself is all by himself. I think that kind of proves that they are different species, and that Saber is the most powerful of those two species due to them being in a group, probably to protect themselves from beasts like Saber. So I would say that Saber is the most powerful creature in that area, which is a huge thing to say since, Saber, well, not Saber, but Camp Nine Moon is a very, very dangerous place, at least implied from the book. And also, if you don't even want to judge from Horror Town that Saber is intelligent, you can just take a look at his almost appearance in Goosebumps film, where he is, teaming up with Slappy to destroy all the monsters. I don't know if that's a sign of his intelligence that he's working with Slappy, but, it's kind of means that he's at least the same intelligence level as the Werewolf of Fever Swamp or the Giant Praying Mantis. And speaking of the Werewolf of Fever Swamp, let's get on to our next contestant, and that is Will Blake from the Werewolf of Fever Swamp. So, honestly, the Werewolf of Fever Swamp really isn't that powerful. He's constantly being hunted by a swamp hermit, who actually I don't think possesses any silver. And so the fact that he thinks he can just go after the werewolf is kind of, means that he's really kind of weak. And honestly, the Werewolf of Fever Swamp isn't that intelligent, because, he's just a monster, but I'm going to talk about that later. But basically, the Werewolf of Fever Swamp lives in, Fever Swamp, and is kind of like your average werewolf, I think, except he's weaker. He doesn't seem to have a weakness to silver, as I said before, due to the hermit. I don't think even possessing silver, he has all these traps everywhere that a werewolf could easily rip out of and stuff like that, but it seems like since he's been hunting the werewolf for so long that means that not this guy, but the Werewolf of Fever Swamp really doesn't have a weakness to silver, and so that kind of means that he's easier to kill. And also, if you take a look at the book itself, the Werewolf of Fever Swamp is going to fight, let's just say a pet. I won't go into details on that, but it causes the werewolf to run away after a fight with some weaker creature. I mean, not the wolf, but the dog was really big, but he's a werewolf, so you think, he might be more powerful, but I think he loses in a fight to, a dog. So, it kind of means that he is weaker, and a whole lot weaker than your average werewolf, and this could lead him easily being beaten by Saber. But, he might make up for it in intelligence, but honestly, the Werewolf of Fever Swamp isn't that intelligent either. Again, the Swamp Hermit's putting out all these traps. I think maybe he could easily sense the Swamp Hermit and stuff like that. And also, just from your average werewolf lore, maybe he's different since, he's a werewolf. Since he doesn't have a weakness to silver, I'm sorry, guys. But, most of these kind of werewolves lose their minds, sort of, and they just turn to werewolves and, just start attacking everyone, stuff like that, but, that could be different in some way. Not really sure about that, but he's really not that intelligent from what we've seen. In his human form, he may be super intelligent, but in his normal form, as a werewolf, he's really not intelligent in monster way, and since he really doesn't have a weakness to silver, that kind of, means that he's weaker. Again, he got beat by a dog, which again kind of proves that he's weaker. And I don't know, I just do not see any scenario where the Werewolf of Fever Swamp could win this fight. And so now we're getting into how each monster would win. I think maybe, just maybe, if the Werewolf of Fever Swamp was intelligent enough, then maybe he could lure the Saber into the bog area. But again, Saber is super intelligent, so intelligent that most monsters compared to him are really just quite dumb. He's not as smart like a Slappy, but again, Saber's super incredibly intelligent, and the Werewolf of Fever Swamp really isn't. So, you know, there's that, and I don't think the Werewolf of Fever Swamp would be able to outsmart him. And also, though, it may depend on the terrain. So, if the Werewolf of Fever Swamp has a fair shot at winning, I'll give him that the fight has to take place in Fever Swamp, which is Werewolf Fever Swamp's home terrain, and as clearly stated from the book, I think he knows his way around there, so I'll give the Werewolf Fever Swamp that advantage of home terrain. Maybe he'll be able to beat this Saber by doing this, but still, I think Saber's incredibly intelligent, can, easily defeat the Werewolf Fever Swamp. I don't think it's really that fair for the Werewolf Fever Swamp still, because, again, he's weaker, doesn't have, any way of winning unless he outsmarts him, which is going to be incredibly hard since he can talk, and he can, disguise himself as a human. He can do all these things, and the Werewolf Fever Swamp can't. I mean, there's a slight chance, again, that he could win in his home terrain, but that is just a slight chance. And I just see in multiple outcomes that Saber would win this fight. But comment down below what you guys think about this. Do you think Saber would win, or the Werewolf of Fever Swamp? Again, comment down below, and thank you guys so much for watching, and that is the end of my video.